in the disciples' face, and they would have just went, where are we going next? Right? Or Pete, don't come. Right? Because there's a difference with these guys. There's a difference, right? They've learned that there's nothing bigger, there's nothing better than what they have with this guy. Right? So you seek me and you just got filled, right? Do not labor for the food which perishes, but for the food which endures to everlasting life, which the Son of Man will give you, because God the Father has set his seal upon him. What does Jesus speak about in the previous chapters? What is Jesus' food? I have food that you know nothing about. What is it? To do the will of the Father. Right? Jesus is saying, listen, when he met that woman, you know, like they're talking about all the food, and he goes, you have no idea. Jesus, are you hungry? He goes, listen, I have food that you have no understanding about, right? Because he's just had to rebuke the 12 for not participating with this woman who had just completely ruined her life. He says, listen, this is my food. This is my moment. I'm doing the will of the Father. This is it. It's all about her. Right? And so you have the 12 to kind of get a little smackdown with that. And so it says, my food is to do the will of him who sent me. And that's in a previous chapter where the woman is at the well. Then they said to him, what shall we do? Right? These people. That we may work the works of God. I don't know if that's a correct perspective. You should be talking to Jesus about. Jesus, how can we work the works of you? And Jesus answered and said to him, this is the work of God, that you believe in him who he sent. And I wrote in my notes on the Bible here, it's my wife's, not mine, but I wrote buzzkill.
You asked for that.
Huh? Do I have to interpret that for you, Brennan? Buzzkill. Because you know what? It's not fun. Right? This isn't fun. You mean to believe in him who he sent? Certainly couldn't I be religious for a little while, give a little money, maybe help the poor? Couldn't I do all these different things? Couldn't I go to church every single Sunday? Couldn't I tithe 11% just to show how holy I am? Right? Do you see what I'm saying? It's so much easier if I gave you guys a 10-point system and said, do this and you'll be saved. Every one of you would be excited because you can do that. And Jesus is saying, they're all hyped up saying, what shall we do? What shall we do? And Jesus is like, believe in the one who he sent. And it's like, we don't want to do that. That would be too hard. I have to believe you. You don't look like John the Baptist. You don't look like Elijah, these stories I've made up, you know, and these things. And so he says, this is the work of God, that you believe in him who he sent. Therefore, they said to him, I want you to consider this, because we all camp here in these things that they're saying. What sign will you perform then, that we may see it and believe you? And then he goes right back into works again. What work will you do, right? Why? Okay, we're on the other side in Tiberias. What just happened?
A miracle.
Crazy miracle, right?
And the same people got in the boat and followed the cross. It wasn't like new people who...
Yeah, these people are like, man, Jesus is gnarly. We're following him because he's fixing all these broken people. They have diseases and he's healing them. And he's doing all these things. We heard about the story of the guy at Bethesda, and we heard about the water and the wine, and we were cheering. And, you know, we have all these different things, and we're going to follow him around. He's like, give us a sign. How do we know you're the one? I'm not really sure yet. And it just reminds me of the Red Sea splitting, all these people going through, the enemies are taken care of, God took care of business, and a month and a half later, what did we do?
Build a golden calf.
We built a calf, and we're like, Moses is gone. He's been gone for a month and a half. Give me all your gold. Let's worship this thing. Oh, it will save us. You know what I'm saying? But then again, that's what we do. We build our lives in these things. And so when Jesus is doing these things, you know, anyway, you guys can get it. So therefore, what sign will you show us, Jesus, right? We don't know if you're the one yet. I mean, all those other things that happened yesterday, we've not forgotten them. And he says, what work will you do, right? They've been wanting a sign because their whole entire lives they've been taught Scripture forever. And they knew the Messiah would come and do these specific things, and yet he's doing them, and yet he's telling, listen, guys, how much more do I have to do? You don't want it. You don't want me, right? He says, and then, I love this, right? This little pompous answer. Our fathers ate the manna in heaven, in the desert, right? Our fathers ate the manna in the desert. As it is written, he gave them bread from heaven to eat. And I think it's funny that they kind of quote.
The scripture happened.
Huh?
The scripture happened. He gave them bread from heaven.
Yeah, I know, but the way I was reading this, and someone backed me up, our fathers ate the manna in the desert, right? And then and I'm starting to think, you know, God gave them that manna, right? You have nothing but what God has given you. You don't come by and just say, well, man, I have this marvelous gift of this. Look at me. Give me $10,000 and I'll heal your arm. I'll raise you from the dead if you want. You know what I'm saying? And so you have this thing, and God gives these things. God gives this. Listen, who could boast in the desert when this stuff called what is it, that tasted like honey, right, landed on the ground, and they had to eat whatever they had to eat for the day and not for tomorrow, right, except for the Sabbath. Right? So this what is it stuff comes down. Who could boast in those things, right? Who could boast in the manna? And then God says, listen, I fed you in the desert. And so then Jesus said to them, most assuredly, I say to you, Moses did not give you the bread from heaven. Don't say he did. You're a great faith prophet. You have all faith in him. Maybe he's your Messiah, right? He says, but my Father gives you the true bread from heaven. For the bread of God is he who comes down from heaven and gives life to the world. The bread in the desert was an example of me. It all speaks of me. God provided it so you would sustain your life temporarily. I am the bread of heaven that sustains you forever. You partake into me, you're part of the program. Then they said to him, Lord, give us this bread always. And I just go back into when Moses comes down and he makes a deal with God because the people are worshiping and these things, and there's the 10 Commandments going on, and Moses is like, are you ready to play? And they're like, we'll do whatever you want. Mo, you just tell God, we'll do whatever you want. We're in. Sign on the dotted line. And what they do? Just break every law they could possibly get their hands on. Right? And here you have the same thing. It's like, and they said to him, Lord, give us this bread. We want this. And Jesus said to them, I am the bread. Right? I am the bread of life. He who comes to me shall never hunger, and he who believes in me shall never thirst. And right? You just said, you're the bread that Captain Moses provided for our fathers. This is big, right? You're the bread? What a smack in the face, right? It says, but I said to you that you have seen me, and yet do not believe, right? And all that the Father gives me will come to me, and the one who comes to me I will by no means cast out. For I have come down from heaven not to do my own will. If it were up to Jesus, right? He's saying, listen, I've come to do the Father's will right now, and but the will of him who sent me. This is the will of the Father who sent me, that of all he has given me, I should lose nothing, but should raise it up at the last day. And this is the will of him who sent me, that everyone who sees the Son and believes in him may have everlasting life, and I will raise him up in the last day. What is this a story of? He's talking to them in their own language. Going back in the story where you have the serpent on the stake. Right? The serpent on the pole. And so he's saying, listen, everyone who looks, do you remember the story? You look upon this, you will be saved, because your sin is so disastrous it will kill you. You have to look upon this. So Jesus is kind of going back in time with them. Then the Jews, check this out, the Jews then complained about him because he said, I am the bread which came down from heaven. So the Jews aren't very happy about this, obviously. And they said, is not this Jesus, the son of Joseph? Joseph that hangs out at the grocery store every Thursday? You know what I'm saying? He delivered my table last Tuesday, right? So this Joseph, whose father and mother we know these people. They cruise around our town. And right now, you have to recognize this sea is 60 miles from Jerusalem. It's not a walk in the park, but it's not forever, right? So 60 miles and you're here from Jerusalem, from the Passover. So anyway, Jesus therefore answered and said to them, right? He just got his family attacked. Do not murmur about yourselves, among yourselves. No one can come to me unless the Father who sent me draws him, and I will raise him up in the last day. So who saves people? No one comes to the Lord unless God draw him, right? And so obviously it's not us who save people. We are simply people just that the Lord uses to be a part of this thing. So, anybody got any questions? You, Mel?